a look at some of the closing messages from Vice President Kamala Harris over the final weekend of the 2024 presidential campaign.
But I mean, and it was a very uniting message.
Joyful, uniting.
And I will say
clear.
That's what candidates do.
Right.
At the end.
At the end, you want to bring it together.
Their arms out, Willie.
Right.
Across the fruited plains.
Yes.
Right. Across the rolling hills of the Republic.
Hug.
You say, come to me.
Yeah.
E pluribus unum. That's what you say.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So this should not have been a surprise, but I loved, she hit all of her marks.
Yeah.
She's talking about bringing America together, being a president for all Americans, the sort of things that Americans have long said they wanted.
Right.
Consensus, compromise, unity.
Unity.
And that's a message that every politician, as they're wrapping up their campaign, that's what they do.
Here now is some of what we heard and saw from former President Donald Trump.
Did he do the same?
The image of our country is terrible. It's terrible. It's a failed country. That's what it is. They view us as a nation in decline, but even worse, they view us as a failed country. Kamala's closing message to America is that she hates you. You know, there's got to be something there. I think she does. I do believe you. The day that I left, I shouldn't have left. I mean, honestly, because we did so well. That white, beautiful white skin that I have would be nice and tan. I got the whitest skin because I never have time to go out in the sun, but I have that beautiful white, and you know what? It could have been beautiful, tan, beautiful. And I have this piece of glass here, but all we have really over here is the fake news, right? And to get me, somebody would have to shoot through the fake news. And I don't mind that so much, because I consider myself to be the father of fertilization. It's a very demonic party. I come in, and here's the problem. I said, oh, man, it's too low. I said, it's too low. So I had to go. In Lancaster, they found 2,600 ballots, all done by the same hand. In other words, the same exact penmanship, the same hand, the same everything. Your team is very good. I would say the Greek is a seriously good player. Do you agree? And tell me, who has more Greek in him, the Greek or me? I think we have about the same. A little birdie told me that we're leading in New Jersey. What's that all about? Huh? We love New Jersey. And if you don't vote, you're stupid. You're stupid. You watch. It's going to be so good. It's going to be so much fun. It'll be nasty a little bit at times, and maybe at the beginning in particular, but it's going to be something.
Speaking of nasty, did he really do that gesture? I don't know.
Well, there's so many things. I mean, let's bring in
along
the gang.
with Joe, Willie, and me, we have the host of Way Too Early, White House bureau chief at Politico, Jonathan Lemire, U.S. special correspondent for BBC News, Katty Kay, NBC News national affairs analyst and a partner and chief political columnist at Puck, John Hallman, and president of the National Action Network and host of MSNBC's Politics Nation, Reverend Al Sharpton.
All right, so, Willie, there's so much to go over there. First of all, again, with Kamala Harris, she delivers the message that I think Americans want, which is let's come together. I'm going to be president for all Americans. And she's done this for quite some time. Donald Trump, I couldn't write down the notes quickly enough. First of all, he was asleep on his feet in one of those events. But he talked about America being horrible. He lied about, once again, spreading a big lie. He must be concerned about Pennsylvania. He keeps lying about Pennsylvania. Says he's the father of fertilization. I'm not exactly sure what that means. And then he did a graphic scene, like he was having oral sex.
Oh my God!
With the microphone, and some social media platforms actually would not play it because they said it was so obscene. And you look at that moment, and again, you hear these people running on radio stations
content
and saying that, oh, they're, he's going to save Christians. He's sent by Jesus. He's a Christian.
Protector of women.
He's a protector of women and all this. But all the lies were just stunning. And I don't know that I've ever seen as much contrast in the closing message, not just on energy and on vitality and on vigor, but also just the overall message of hope, optimism versus pessimism, grimness. And again, a calling 2 days after he called to have Liz Cheney shot by a firing squad, talking about how he wouldn't mind if the press got shot.
Yeah, he said, I wouldn't mind that. You'd have to shoot through the fake news to get to me, and he wouldn't have a problem with that. I think start with the superficial, which you touched on, which is this was, when Joe Biden was the candidate, a contrast that Donald Trump was young and vital. Watch those two sets of rallies and tell me which candidate is young and vital, who looks exhausted. And then the second and perhaps more important piece of it is you didn't hear one word in any of those rallies from Donald Trump about the people, about the people whose vote he wants. It's all about him.
It's so funny you said that, because there was one rally where he said, oh, all the seats are here, right? Everybody, and the cameraman panned around and you saw all these empty seats. But I saw something else as he was talking about himself and his grievance. I saw people up in the stands with their arms like around empty seats and just kind of looking around. It's crazy. He never talks about them. He never talks about the people. He talks about himself.
Yeah, and Kamala Harris's message here down the stretch, as you said, she made her sort of final critique of Donald Trump this weekend and now has turned to, hey, we want to turn the page together as a country. We want everybody on board. She was talking to Republicans. There's a place for you in my campaign. There's a place for you in my administration. There's a place for you in this country. And the Wall Street Journal, actually, Joe, the front page talking about Donald Trump's final weekend, you can go right here. It says, dark pitch gets third airing, asking if voters really want to hear American carnage a third time. Will it sell this time? And that's exactly what Donald Trump is selling here at the end.
Caddy, the grimness, again, the grimness over the past several weeks have been just the opposite, actually, of what Donald Trump tried to do in the last 10 days of the 2016 campaign, where he won. When you ask people, why did Donald Trump win? And they always say, well, after the Mueller letter, he bit his tongue. He stayed quiet. It was one of the only times he ever showed any discipline. And he finished quietly and got out of the way of the voters. Here, my gosh, if you go back over the past 2 weeks, you have Donald Trump talking about using the military, using the National Guard to go after Democrats and to arrest them. You have Donald Trump talking about getting a firing squad and shooting at the face of Liz Cheney, one of the most conservatives in Congress during her stay there. This past weekend, you had him talking about shooting the press and saying he wouldn't mind if the press were shot. And of course, he again, and we have to say it, and I'm so sorry that I know there are a lot of kids that start waking up their parents at 4:30 and say, pour my cereal, Ma, pour my Captain Crunch with Crunch Berries. I want to see Joe and Mika and Willie, the entire funny gang, right? And so they're saying that, so I apologize.
God, I hope not.
That's a long wind-up to say
poor kids.
He simulated oral sex at a rally
twice,
and it was just so graphic that, again, a lot of social media sites had to put up warnings for it. And that's his closing campaign. He seems more untethered and more exhausted at the same time. The the first campaign I ever ran, the guy that I talked to early on in the campaign, he said, Joe, this campaign's all about contrast. You're young, your opponent's old. Drive that. It's all about contrast. You get to the end of this campaign, I've never seen a greater contrast in American politics.
Yeah, this is not the campaign that Chris LaCivita and Susie Wiles were trying to get Trump on, and it's certainly not the campaign that it was, you know, when they seemed to have some amount of control earlier this year, and we were all talking about how much more disciplined this campaign was. I think the October surprise was Donald Trump deciding filters, what the hell, I'm just going to throw them away, and saying whatever he wanted. At that campaign with the famous microphone incident, he also said to the crowd, do you want to see me go backstage and bash some heads in over this? I mean, the violence of the rhetoric. And if Kamala Harris has the momentum now, and if we're going to speak to Ann Seltzer in a minute, if it looks like women are turning out in big numbers, this campaign will partly have been defined by Dobbs and all of the work and the stories that Mika's been airing all of last week, and how women are hearing those, but also by the nature of Donald Trump. When Donald Trump talks about violence like this, when he talks about beating up his stagehands because his microphone isn't working the way that he wants them to, that doesn't inspire a lot of women to think, oh, yeah, well, this is the guy we can trust with the nuclear codes and the keys to the Oval Office.
You know, in the other campaign, Jonathan Lemire, you would have had actually a candidate that had Donald Trump's weaknesses get like Nikki Haley.
Right.
And then figure out how to work the center and pull those women towards him. The exact opposite has happened. We're going to be talking in a minute about some polls that came out over the weekend. One in particular that many people are saying is a canary in the coal mine. We don't know, but there are a lot of people that know politics that are saying that. And if you look at those numbers in Ann Seltzer's polls, which Ann is right 99.9% of the time, you see women, especially older women, breaking hard away from Donald Trump. And I just wonder if looking at that poll and understanding just how right that poll was 4 years ago, and we'll talk to John Heilemann about that in a second, if that's one of the reasons Donald Trump seemed even more unhinged this weekend.
And just real quickly, as we toss to you, I'm following another story of an 18-year-old in Texas a year ago. Her mother took her to 3 emergency rooms. The first one begging for help. They gave her some sort of antibiotic or something. The second one, they sent her home. The third one, by then, the miscarriage was so her organs failed and she died because of these strict abortion bans. People are seeing and living and dying this reality of Trump.
Yeah, we said on the show a few weeks ago that when the dust settles, if Harris were to win, we might all look at each other and say it was Dobbs all along. And we're seeing that in some of the movement right now, the polls are suggesting.
Yeah.
A couple other notes here. I heard from someone in the Trump campaign about yesterday. They said it was the angriest they've seen him all year long before that rally, his first rally yesterday in Pennsylvania, where he had obviously digesting the Iowa poll in a pure fury. That's the rally that we're playing all that sound from about shooting the press. And as the day went on, he seemed to get progressively more exhausted. Let's talk some data points, John Heilemann here. What's a big clue where a candidate spends his or her time? Trump in the last few days over and over and over. North Carolina, I'm told there's some worries there, whereas they try to piece together 270, the fact that he's going there back over and over again. And then lastly, let's talk about Pennsylvania, which is the biggest state, the most important state on the map, where Vice President Harris is spending her entire day today. 2 data points. On Saturday, the Harris campaign had over 800,000 door knocks. 800,000 in one day in one state. An unheard of number. And it was relayed earlier this morning that while canvassers were out there, some of these canvassers reaching the same home more than once, which is extraordinary, they never saw any sign of a Trump ground game, a ground game that he outsourced to Elon Musk and the like.
Yeah, man, so many data points right now. Trump, if you watched him all weekend long, I'll tell you exactly what it wasn't just that he looked angry, which he did sometimes, and again, the constant projections of these violent fantasies, you know, the Cheney thing, the shooting the